Hey everyone, welcome back to another weekly rundown. Today we're covering April 25th through May 1st, 2026, a week defined by a shocking assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, continued enforcement of the Iran naval blockade, major fraud accountability, including indictments against the Southern Poverty Law Center, congressional shakeups, and other domestic and international developments. Let's dive in. On April 25th, President Trump attended the White House Correspondents' Dinner, his first as a sitting president. During the event, reports emerged of shots fired, and Secret Service agents quickly evacuated the president. One Secret Service agent was shot in the chest, but protected by a vest, and the bullet struck his cell phone. The shooter, identified as 31-year-old Cole Allen from California, was neutralized and taken into custody. No injuries to Trump or other attendees were reported. Allen faced preliminary charges including attempted assassination of the president and assault on a federal officer, with additional charges expected. A manifesto and other evidence were recovered, with reports indicating anti-Christian sentiments and broader targeting of Trump administration officials. The FBI and Secret Service launched investigations, including raids on Allen's residence. Trump later stated the building was not fully secure and reiterated the need for enhanced White House renovations, including the military secure ballroom project. He praised law enforcement and called for national unity against violence. The event was rescheduled, and major security improvements are expected. Speaking of the ballroom, Representative Lauren Boebert drew up a bill to ensure the ballroom is built, which judges wouldn't be able to stop, and Trump pointed out that he'll only be able to enjoy the ballroom for a few months before his term is up, but it will be there for all the following administrations. Jimmy Kimmel is in hot water again for joking, if you can call it a joke, about Melania being an expected widow. He made the comments on his show before the assassination attempt occurred, and later clarified that he meant Trump would soon die due to age and poor health. However, Kimmel's explanation for his bad joke doesn't take away his horrible ratings, and FCC Chair Brendan Carr is set to go after ABC licenses. On to Operation Epic Fury. U.S. forces continued enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports, redirecting at least 42 vessels, and CENTCOM confirmed 0 ships successfully breached the blockade for Iranian trade. U.S. Navy assets, including destroyers and helicopters, intercepted attempts, with one Iranian-flagged ship boarded after warnings were ignored. Marines took custody, and reports indicated the vessel was transporting dual-use chemicals for missiles. President Trump extended the ceasefire, initially 2 weeks, by several days at Pakistan's request while maintaining the blockade. He canceled a planned high-level delegation trip to Islamabad, stating Iran lacked unified leadership and the U.S. held all leverage. Trump warned of resuming strikes on power plants and bridges if terms were not met, emphasizing no cash or asset releases. Iran faced internal power struggles and daily economic losses estimated at $400 to $500 million. Shipping resumed for non-Iranian traffic, but Iranian operations remained heavily restricted. Trump highlighted tankers heading to U.S. ports for American oil, and the UAE left OPEC, surging independent production and bypassing the strait. The U.S. Treasury cracked down on shadow banking and Chinese refineries fueling the regime, and Iran informed Trump they are in a state of collapse. In related news, the U.S. Senate rejected the Democrat-led War Powers Resolution for the 6th time, and President Trump withdrew 5,000 U.S. troops out of Germany after Chancellor Merz failed to support America and criticized the United States' handling of Operation Epic Fury. Let's switch to updates on the ongoing fraud scandals. A report from the Department of Justice found that the Biden DOJ aggressively targeted and harassed Christians, calling them cultists and seeking harsh prison sentences for peaceful protests, and using the Southern Poverty Law Center, or SPLC, to do so. The DOJ announced an 11-count indictment against the SPLC for alleged wire fraud, false statements, and money laundering, as they reportedly funneled millions to individuals linked to the KKK, neo-Nazis, and other extremists, including a Charlottesville Unite the Right organizer, while soliciting donations to oppose such groups and to smear conservatives. House probes and calls to revoke the SPLC's tax-exempt status intensified, and meanwhile in California, scrutiny of hospice and Medi-Cal programs continued, with CMS Administrator Dr. Oz reporting hundreds of providers shut down and massive alleged losses. The controversial Stop Nick Shirley Act drew criticism for potentially criminalizing fraud exposure, and nationwide, the Anti-Fraud Task Force targeted billions in questionable grants and SNAP abuse. USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins confirmed that in just the red states, around 500,000 people were found to be getting more than one federal welfare benefit illegally, along with 244,000 dead people. Blue states are suing to keep their data hidden regarding this matter, and as Secretary Rollins said, the corruption is absolutely astounding. Representative Sheila Sheriffless McCormick resigned amid $5 million FEMA funds theft allegations, with expulsion proceedings advancing, and Representative Ilhan Omar faced renewed financial scrutiny and fraud probes. She was given only days to provide documents on her involvement in the Feeding Our Future fraud scandal to the Minnesota House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, and her husband's winery, widely accused of fraud, shut down after she revised her multimillionaire status to $100,000. FBI and HSI agents raided over 20 Minnesota locations in fraud probes, including the Quality Leering Center, and Vice President Vance confirmed the Anti-Fraud Task Force is actively investigating if Tim Walz or his administration committed criminal acts by allowing this fraud. Dr. Oz froze $91 million in Minnesota funds after it was discovered millions of dollars may have gone to people who did not qualify for Medicaid, including illegal aliens. In other Minnesota news, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche announced 3 federal indictments against the fat and ugly leftists who violently mobbed and assaulted TPUSA journalist Savannah Hernandez at a Minneapolis ICE protest. Hernandez was lawfully reporting on the anti-ICE protests outside a federal building in St. Paul when she was assaulted by the family of 3, followed by being shoved to the ground by the father, about 3 times her size. Shifting to James Comey's second indictment. Former FBI Director James Comey was indicted on April 28th by a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina on 2 felony counts related to a May 2025 Instagram post, now deleted. The post showed seashells on a North Carolina beach arranged to spell 8647. Prosecutors interpret 86 as slang for get rid of or cancel, which is a restaurant code, and 47 as referring to President Trump, the 47th president. They claim it constituted a threat to harm or kill him. Comey captioned it innocuously and later deleted it after seeing how some interpreted it as a political or violent message. He described it as a political statement, but not a threat. His charges include threatening the president and transmitting a threat in interstate commerce, with a maximum penalty of up to 20 years in prison if convicted on both counts, though some reports note 10 years per count. An arrest warrant was issued, and Comey reportedly surrendered himself to authorities and appeared in court shortly after the indictment. The DOJ, under Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, says the case was investigated for around 9 to 11 months and involves evidence of intent beyond just the single post. The indictment includes a forfeiture notice seeking to seize profits from Comey's book sales for a novel launched around the time of the post. Let's move on to redistricting. The U.S. Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision in Louisiana versus Calais, striking down Louisiana's congressional map as an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. Justice Samuel Alito authored the majority opinion, holding that the Voting Rights Act did not require creating an additional majority black district. Compliance with the VRA could not justify the predominant use of race in drawing the map. This narrows the application of the VRA for redistricting and opens the door for Republican-led states to redraw maps without race as a dominant factor. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis proposed, and the Republican-controlled legislature quickly passed, a new 2026 congressional map. It is headed to his desk for signature and could net Republicans up to 4 additional seats. The Supreme Court upheld Texas's new congressional map, allowing Republicans to potentially gain seats for the 2026 midterms, and the Virginia Supreme Court blocked certification of a recent voter-approved redistricting amendment, which is now in limbo due to procedural challenges. Several southern states are pursuing or preparing new maps ahead of the 2026 midterms, citing the SCOTUS ruling, including Louisiana, Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina. Overall, we're seeing a coordinated push by Republican-led states to redraw congressional maps post-SCOTUS ruling, potentially netting Republicans significant House seat gains for the 2026 midterms. Democrats and voting rights groups criticize the moves as undermining minority representation and have signaled lawsuits. The situation is fast-moving with ongoing legal and legislative developments. Switching to the state visit. President Trump and First Lady Melania hosted King Charles III and Queen Camilla for the formal state visit to the United States, the first by a British monarch in nearly 2 decades. It celebrated the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and the enduring U.S.-UK special relationship. Highlights included the arrival ceremony on the White House South Lawn, bilateral meetings between President Trump and King Charles, a grand state dinner at the White House with notable guests including Supreme Court justices, administration officials, and lawmakers. King Charles addressed the joint session of Congress, and the royals visited the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery before departing. The event was widely described as warm, ceremonial, and symbolic, emphasizing shared history and alliance. It concluded with a formal farewell at the White House. Let's shift to some updates related to COVID response. David Morens, a former senior advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci at NIAID and NIH, was federally indicted on multiple charges including conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. The charges stem from allegations that Morens used personal email accounts, including Gmail, to evade Freedom of Information Act requests and hide communications related to COVID-19 research origins, gain-of-function studies, and grants linked to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche called it a profound abuse of trust during the pandemic. Fauci himself is not charged in this indictment, but Representative Nancy Mace and others are urging the DOJ to indict Fauci for allegedly lying to Congress about NIH funding research before the 5-year statute of limitations expires on May 11th, and they question the validity of Biden's preemptive pardon issued in 2025. Senator Ron Johnson and Senator Rand Paul highlighted broader alleged cover-ups, including claims that FDA officials, under the new administration, acknowledged COVID-19 vaccines contributed to the deaths of some healthy American children, with references to around 10 child deaths in internal FDA discussions. This reflects ongoing congressional and DOJ scrutiny of the federal COVID response. Morens' case is active, and further actions are possible before the May 11th deadline. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Zevo Life. Let me tell you about them quick. Looking for a game-changing way to improve your health? Zevo Life is the world's most nutrient-dense whole plant, packed with over 50% plant protein, essential amino acids, fiber, and antioxidants. Harnessing the best nature has to offer, Zevo Life nourishes your body while driving your performance, vitality, and overall well-being. Each serving is a concentrated source of clean, well-balanced nutrition designed to support modern lifestyles, and just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts energy, and promotes healthier skin and hair. It's no wonder that it's receiving rave 5-star reviews. Step into a healthier future with a 30% discount and a 30-day risk-free guarantee by visiting zivo.life and using my promo code. To support my show and to receive 30% off your entire order, enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. President Trump revealed the new black granite pathway at the White House that he personally funded to be completed before King Charles III's visit. The House passed DHS funding legislation from the Senate by voice vote, but it does not include funding for ICE and CBP. ICE and CBP will be funded for the next 3 years through reconciliation. President Trump officially declared May National Foster Care Month, and the White House is giving federal employees who foster or adopt children expanded benefits, including paid parental leave and flexible work schedules. Senator Rand Paul introduced a constitutional amendment to end birthright citizenship, and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton made moves to quash a birth tourism center that encourages Chinese women to give birth in the United States to exploit our birthright citizenship rights. President Trump launched the Trump IRA program, which allows millions of Americans to get federal government-matched contributions to their retirement, boosting retirement plans and benefits. Renovations of the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool progressed at a lower cost. President Trump appointed Dr. Nicole B. Safir to be the next United States Surgeon General. War Secretary Pete Hegseth announced the Pentagon will deliver a clean audit in 2028, and he and President Trump proposed a 7% pay raise for lower enlisted American troops. Fed Chair nominee Kevin Warsh was approved by the Senate Banking Committee, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune moved to confirm him. President Trump asked Nate Morris to drop out of the Kentucky U.S. Senate primary to take on a role as an ambassador in the Trump administration, which Nate accepted, and Trump endorsed Representative Andy Barr for Kentucky U.S. Senate instead. The U.S. House passed the 2026 Farm Bill with a key amendment introduced and approved by voice vote that prohibits foreign adversaries from purchasing U.S. agricultural farmland, citing national security risks over foreign ownership. The bill now heads to the Senate. The U.S. House passed a 3-year FISA extension that includes a ban on central bank digital currency. President Trump confirmed he's releasing the UFO files and that we'll all see some interesting and unbelievable things in them. The FBI and Secret Service launched an investigation into a Wisconsin brewery that boasted about offering free beer on the day President Trump dies. First Lady Melania celebrated her 56th birthday on April 26th. New York City Mayor Mamdani may lose a $6 billion project and 20,000 jobs after he recorded an anti-rich commercial at Ken Griffin's home. President Trump is pushing to enact a cognitive test requirement for anyone who runs for president or vice president. New Hampshire Representative Dale Gerard switched to the Republican Party. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman eliminated $1 billion per year in waste and abuse. President Trump signed an executive order authorizing an energy pipeline project similar to Keystone XL, and he signed an executive order establishing a fixed-price contract as the default in nearly all federal contracts, saving funds. The U.S. Senate voted down a resolution that would have blocked military action against Cuba, and Trump said he might take over Cuba using the USS Abraham Lincoln when it travels back from Iran. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum revealed record revenue from Alaska National Petroleum Reserve lease sales. President Trump proclaimed the weekend National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Weekend. The U.S. Senate unanimously passed a ban on senators and their staff from engaging in prediction market trading, such as Polymarket or Kalshi. Texas Governor Greg Abbott appealed and halted an activist judge's ruling that allowed the Muslim city development advancement. Lastly, President Trump approved all state permits for the 2026 red snapper season due to the record high fish population. That wraps up our recap of April 25th through May 1st. A week of heightened security concerns, sustained pressure on Iran, fraud accountability, and redistricting shifts. The SPLC indictment is historic. How deep does the rot go? Drop your thoughts in the comments or on Instagram or X at Shades of Jade Pod. If these updates are hitting the spot, subscribe, review, and share. Thank you for listening and have a great day.